What's going on, everybody? Joe Carlton here with the Sports Affiliation, bringing you episode 38 of Aces Up podcast. Last night, I had to cancel on my guest. Sorry, Mahoff. I apologize, man. When I booked you, I forgot that my wife's godmother / aunt, Auntie Bob, we call her. It's actually my favorite aunt. Family included, my blood family included, my favorite aunt, Auntie Bob. Shout out Auntie Bob. Flying in from Naples, Florida, for the week. So for a couple of weeks, I should say, now that the weather is a little bit better up here in New England. So I had that, plus I had my son. We had a Little League game last night. He plays, farm league, coach pitches. I'm the pitcher. I threw 3 innings last night. Little league, 7-year-old kids, we're teaching them the basics, getting to learn how to make contact, stuff like that. We had that until 7:45. So I asked Hoff if he could do a later show, and unfortunately he couldn't. So we're going to have to get Hoff on another time. So sorry about that, brother. Love you. You know that. We'll get you back on. Also was going to possibly go last night. Steve was in, Steve D'Angelo, got a shout out to him too. Love him. He was going to go live with me last night at 11 p.m. and I just decided I didn't have the gas for it. It was a long day. So I waited till today, had the itch. So now I'm on here bringing you Aces Up solo, by myself. We're going to go over a $350 Football Guys online championship, NFFC website. That's where I play. That's where I learned high stakes. So that's what, developed a bunch of great friendships from my opponents and learned a great deal from them. So I do nothing but have nothing but love highlight in the NFFC. So we're going to go over my draft. I said I was going to hold out until later on, but when I studied ADP and was looking at the first 4 or 5 drafts that happened, I noticed a lot of value. And I thought to myself, you would be a fool if you don't jump in now and get one in. So I jumped in Sunday. I tried to get one in actually a week before. It never filled. This week it filled. So that was good. I particularly wanted to get so NFFC, those who don't know, this format is, we'll go over the format real quick so everybody in the audience is aware when they take a look at the draft board, when I do present the draft board, and start going over things. But it is a $350 buy-in. Passing touchdowns are worth 6 points in this format. It is not tight end premium. However, you do have to start 3 wide receivers, and there is a flex. So it's a quarterback, 2 running backs, single quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a flex, a tight end, a kicker, and a defense. And there's 20 total roster spots and 300,000 this year at the top, the overall grand prize. It's a 12-team league. The top 2 from each league move on to the shootout in weeks 15 through 17, after week 14. Goes by total points. You can get in with a win. There is head-to-head as well. If you win your division but don't have the most total points, that's another way to get into the shootout. But you get into the shootout and you can compete for the $300K up at the top, which is new. That's a new high total. Last couple of years, it was $250K. This year, it's $300K. It's usually about 5. I'm expecting somewhere between 4,500 and 6,000 entries probably overall in this. But again, 12-team league, you win your league, you get $1,500 cash, or you can opt to take a primetime entry, which is a $1,800 value, I believe. So yeah, that's the format. I'm going to bring up the draft board real quick. Here we go. There it is. I was team 9. So they use KDS. For those who aren't familiar with KDS, it's Kentucky Derby style draft selection. So once the draft fills, you can you pick which spot you want in order from 1 to 12 based on where you want to pick. This is third round reversal as well. So third round, the pick 12 gets to pick first in round 3, and team 1 gets to pick first in round 5, and then it's a traditional snake from that point on. Those who aren't familiar with third round reversal, so a lot of people can prefer the back end if they see something that they like. Normally, I'm a front end guy, or if I do take the back end, I like the elbow spot, like 7, 8, or 9. In this instance, I got the 9 spot. However, that wasn't my top choice. I wanted to get the 12 spot. I was trying to get the 12 spot. My buddy Mike Zander got it, and I will explain exactly why I wanted the 12 spot, because why I wanted it is exactly happened in this draft. So when I was looking at ADP, studying the ADP landscape of the few drafts that had happened, I noticed there was a lot of value from the back end. I mean, there's value all over the place. Don't get me wrong. Begin at the first end. You're a good drafter. You can adapt. You're fluid. You're good with roster construction. You're going to be all right. But I particularly spotted a bunch of edges in the back end specifically. And if you get that 12 spot, you get the 2 picks back to back, boom, boom. You can kind of reach. Like almost some of your picks are going to be reaches, because you pick twice and then you got to wait, almost 24 picks before it's your turn again. And then you go twice. So you got to be very selective about your players. And I kind of like that if I have somewhat of a plan or somewhat of a few players that I'm targeting and I want to get. So obviously, if you have to pivot, you pivot, and I did have to pivot. So my plan going in, I'm not going to get too particular into what I was targeting, since I didn't have to target it, but I wasn't expecting Amon-Ra St. Brown to fall at pick 9. I was going to go somebody else. We'll see. Well, I'm not going to mention who, because I know a lot of my high stakes opponents are going to be listening, and I don't want to give away that initial plan that I had just yet. But yeah, St. Brown fell to me at 9, and I took him. I couldn't pass up on him. And then in the second round, it came back to me. I got Chase Brown. So there's picks in the first round here. It's pretty chalky. It's Gibbs, Robinson, Chase, Nakua, JSN. A typical top 5. Then you got McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, 6 and 7, and the guy who picked in spot 8 reached and pulled up Omarion Hampton, thus allowing me to get St. Brown. That's kind of how he fell. The top 8 is usually pretty set in stone there, but Hampton got pulled up, and I ended up with St. Brown. So the reason why I wanted 12 is because I noticed Brock Bowers, his ADP was anywhere between like 21 and 24. And I thought that there would be a possibility, depending on who's in the 1 and 2 or 3 spot, and I'm not going to mention names here, but certain people draft a certain way and they don't take early tight ends. So I thought that there was a possible chance that from the back end, Brock Bowers would fall to round 3. Third round reversal, you get that first pick in round 3. So I thought if you could get a third round Brock Bowers, you'd be sitting real pretty, especially if you took the 2 guys you were targeting first. So in this instance, Team 12 went Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. Again, in a 3 wide receiver format, they decided to bypass running backs here and stack 2 elite wide receivers. And then they did get Bowers to fall to round 3. So, in this particular contest, as we get closer to July and August, I could see Bowers moving up into the middle of the second round and never, ever fall into round 3. I think this is going to be a rare occasion. So this is one of my early edges that I want to point out in this contest. If you can grab yourself a third round Brock Bowers, that's a huge edge, in my opinion, with any build. In this instance, Team 12 went Jefferson and Lamb, but this person could have just as easily went and Jefferson, Genty, or Lamb Genty or Genty Brown, or there's so many different combinations there. They could have went to go with Brock Bowers there. And so, kudos to Team 12 there. They had a wonderful start. Moving on to, we'll look at my picks. I got Chase Brown in round 2. Third round reversal comes back. It goes Bowers, and Team 11 goes 3 running backs in a row, much to my surprise. With wide receiver ones available like Nico Collins, Chris Olave, Ted McMillan, even a high end wide receiver 2, T. Higgins, attached to Joe Burrow. We know he's a beast and has a high ceiling as well, given everybody on that offense stays healthy. We see Derrick Henry pop off in round 3 to Team 11. So we got 3 running backs for Team 11. There were 2 teams in this draft that started 3 running backs. Team 8 as well. They actually started 4 running backs, which I think in this particular contest is diabolical. Because you got to start 3 wide receivers and have a flex, so you kind of want that wide receiver depth. But looking at teammates' wide receivers, they ripped off 4 in a row after they started 4 running backs, and they ended up with Odunze as their 1, Brian Thomas as their 2, Pearsall as the 3, and Xavier Worthy as the 4. So they're banking on third year wide receivers having bounce back seasons. After somewhat, Brian Thomas had a huge rookie year. Odunze started off kind of slow, but he was kind of stuck behind, DJ Moore and veteran players on the Bears. But then he got his opportunity, and he started to, he was a top 7 wide receiver until he got hurt. Once he got hurt, last season became kind of lost on him. So he could be a bit of a value there at round 5. So I don't, this person leaned into their build. So I can't say it's totally diabolical because, obviously I can't tell the future, but, they targeted the right players after going for running back. So, we'll see how it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. That's for sure. And coming into this draft, now we're approaching like round 4, round 5 here. One of my hot takes was DJ Moore, round 5 DJ Moore as a wide receiver 3 is an edge in early drafts. When it came to me in round 4, Kyren was available. I know a lot of people are down on Kyren. There's a lot of, it's going to be a 50-50 split between Kyren and Corum, which, by the way, I did pick up Corum in round 9. I did handcuff him. So I do have both Rams running backs. That goes with Dennis, my man Dennis. Shout out to Mike Media, Dennis Michelson, his better than zero approach to running backs, where you grab 2 from the same team. He likes the Chicago Bears combo of Swift and Monangai. That's a pretty good one. I happen to think Kyren and Blake Corum is another good one. Going back to last year, like Gibbs and Montgomery was a great one. Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell. There's a few of them. And, and then in the event one is to miss time, the contingent upside of the other is incredible. If Kyren misses time, you're looking at Corum as a 3-down back and vice versa. So we know Kyren can handle the role. Whether or not he can hold up, that's kind of, people are wondering when we're going to get the Kyren Williams fall off. But in the meantime, I think he's attached to a great Rams offense. He's still going to get, even with 50% of the work, I think he's a solid RB2. So I was more than happy with taking him there in round 4. Wide receivers that were still on board, Devontae Adams, Roma Dunze, DJ Moore at the time, Mike Evans, Christian Watson. They all carry high upside, but they all have some sort of risk. So with that being said, I think the upper couple tiers of the running backs, I wanted to make sure I had a decent floor RB2, and Kyren fills that role. So that's why I go Kyren there. When it comes back to me, I was actually surprised to see Davante Adams still on the board, but where I took Kyren, I didn't want to pair him with Davante Adams, to be honest with you. We know Puka's the wide receiver one there. Davante's another year older. We know a lot of his production last year came from those touchdowns inside the 5-yard line, inside the 10-yard line. Touchdowns can fluctuate. If he doesn't put up double-digit touchdowns, you could be looking at a disappointment pick here in these rounds. And I kind of have a feeling, they brought Higbee back. All the tight ends are intact. They got the 2 running backs. I think they want to go with a more balanced attack. I don't think they want to make Stafford throw as much unless he really has to. So that's kind of where I see the Rams offense going. So I kind of faded Adams here, and I stuck to my guns, and I took DJ Moore in round 5 as a wide receiver 3 in Buffalo. Again, a lot of mixed reviews I've been seeing on DJ Moore. Some shop people are out on him. I can't help but be in on him. I've always considered a DJ Moore a top 10 talent, and he's still borderline there as far as an NFL wide receiver goes, not necessarily fantasy wide receiver. We do know that he doesn't get the high volume that a traditional wide receiver alpha 1 does, but nonetheless, he is shown efficiency in his career with yards after the catch. The last 2 games he played, playoff games, he had 6 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown, and 5 catches for 58 yards or 56 yards and a touchdown. So he's got a touchdown catch in his last 2 games played, playoff games for the Bears. Both were big-time touchdowns. No way do I think he's washed. He moves into a situation where he's got Josh Allen as his quarterback, is attached to a high-powered Buffalo Bills offense. And frankly, I think that they're out for blood this year because they let the division slip last year to my New England Patriots, who kind of fluked their way in there. Nobody was expecting that. They made it to the Super Bowl, got their asses handed to them. Congrats to Seattle on that. But as a Buffalo fan or as somebody looking at this Buffalo team, specifically Josh Allen, I think everybody's pissed off over there, and I think that they're looking to have a huge bounce back year, and DJ Moore is going to be a big part of that. The division's not really that strong. Miami's rebuilding. New England is coming off of a Cinderella year on an easy schedule. Now they got a much more difficult schedule at task. You got, they're defending the division. Buffalo improved their offense. They went out and they paid for DJ Moore. So, yeah, I'm loving DJ Moore this year. I can't be. There's no way I can be out on him. My round 6 pick, I go Vishal Tootin. I think he was the biggest winner from the NFL draft. Jacksonville really didn't add anybody through the draft. They did sign Chris Rodriguez. I do think he will be involved. It's going to be a committee. But Tootin's just got that upside. That's why I took him as an RB3. I'd be a little more uncomfortable if he was my RB2 unless I really went 0 RB and he was my first RB taken. But I took him as an RB3, that high upside in the event that Kyren doesn't pan out. Hopefully Tootin has that upside to replace him if necessary. If the LA Rams RB front and back situation doesn't pan out, own them both, because that is in the range of outcomes where they can both stay healthy and both sabotage themselves all year. So I wanted to make sure I got a nice number 3 running back in Tootin round 6. Now, I want to point out that Bucky Irvin went in round 6 here as well. This draft took place before the injury news, although there was speculation of an injury all along, so I can't really say that, but Bucky Irvin, generally has around, back end round 3, early to mid round 4 ADP. Now in round 6, thought that was a little bit of a value. Wanted to point that out. some things that I wanted to highlight here, not necessarily my team, but again, looking at the back end, round 5, Colston Loveland. Now, he's been the third tight end consistently off the board, but most of the time he's been going in round 4. And here's another instance where we see an a borderline elite tier of their position fall in a half a round into the 5th round, where teams on the back end are adding a 5th player as opposed to it being their 4th player. So they're getting Colston Loveland at a 1-round discount, and that's allowing them to add to their build, elsewhere earlier in the first 4 rounds, giving them a slight edge, in my opinion. So Colston Loveland at the back end around at the beginning of round 5 here, falling a little bit. That's a little bit of a discount based on where he's normally been going. So that's a nice pick right there. Only one quarterback taken in the first 3 rounds, Josh Allen, of course. Then Drake May is the second one off the board at the back end of round 5, and then Lamar Jackson goes in the middle of round 6. And again, Joe Burrow in the 6th round here. Last year he was going in the 4th round, 4th and 5th round, even 4-5 turn, I would say. And this year you can get him at the back end of round 6. Again, he's huge in this format. 6-point passing touchdowns, not 4. 6-point passing touchdowns. So attached to the Cincinnati offense, he's got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, in a defense that just gives up points by the buckets and allows him to keep the foot on the gas pedal. So, quite possibly the best quarterback in the NFL as well, as far as an NFL quarterback goes. Joe Burrow, round 6. That's a tremendous value. So, couple of picks. Those are the picks I wanted to highlight there. Tight ends and quarterbacks. So when I was going into this draft, I thought the sweet spot for tight ends was right around round 7, round 8. If you didn't grab, that discount on Bowers. I do like Ty Warren as well and Colston Loveland, but again, I was 2 picks away from getting that 5th round Colston Loveland where he didn't fall. So at that point, I don't think Ty Warren is worth it. Ty Warren's not really somebody you're going to get on the back end unless you kind of push him up or he falls deep into round 6, which I guess is possible, but highly unlikely. So Ty Warren was kind of out of the range from where I was picking unless I wanted to pull him up. I didn't think I don't necessarily think he's worth a round 5 pick. I could be totally wrong. I was way in on him last year when he was round 9, round 10. He does have pretty much a chance to be the top target on that team. Barring a Josh Downs coming out of nowhere career year type of deal. So maybe I should be more in on Ty Warren. The more that I talk that out, the more I was looking at that. But round 7, round 8, I found a couple of guys that I thought were in sweet spots, and that's Harold Fannin, Kyle Pitts, and Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta surprisingly being the cheapest of the 3. I thought that, you when you're looking at the running backs here in this range, you're looking at Ramondre, Ja'Cory Krosky, Merritt, J.K. Dobbins, Chuba Hubbard, Jaylen Warren, Tony Pollard. You're looking at, low-end RB2s, high-end RB3, depth running backs, which we already, had in this instance with Tootin in this particular build. So now you look at the wide receivers. There's Ricky Pearsall, Khalil Shakir, Chris Godwin, which is actually, I think that's a pretty good value. Wan'Dale Robinson. Those are the wide receivers in the range. So at this point, I thought the tight end might be a good spot to target the tight end. So Harold Fannin was sticking out to me there. And I jumped on him, and we know Njoku's out of the picture, which, by the way, I do take later on in this draft. I get him late. Just anticipating landing spot. We do know he signed a 1-year deal with the Chargers. Kind of thrown into a big mess there with Gadsden, and they already had too many mouths to feed. Quentin Johnston, Lad McConkey's supposed to have a bounce back year. I wanted it to be Trey Harris season, and then now I think this puts a little bit of a dent in possible Trey Harris season. But this is one of the best looking offenses going into this season. So if you want to get a part of it for sure in some way, shape, or form. So, but yeah, Njoku goes there. But yeah, Fannin, I thought Harold Fannin was a great pick here. Laporta, Pitts, this is a great range. They all have the upside to finish top 5, and they're being drafted as, tight end 5 through 8. Really. And you're paying, you're getting a discount on possible upside. So that's a great option if you miss out on the elite there of McBride, Bowers, and Loveland and Warren. So you don't want to fall too far behind on the onesie positions, because then at that point you're doing the Andrew Cooper thing and you're doing the yin yang. You're trying to get somebody with a floor like Dalton Schultz, and then you're taking shots on potential upside, and potential upside means it has to pan out. So, when you punt tight end, this is the most optimal strategy, but you have to keep in mind there is a chance where it doesn't work out and you just end up with the floor play, and and you're playing, from the back end as far as tight end goes. So, your positional advantage in that instance gets reduced a little bit, and that can affect your overall, this is a total points contest. There's no winning the matchup later on, upsetting the better team and moving on. You got to be consistent all year. So you don't want to fall too far behind in positional advantage. So yeah, moving on. We're looking at Michael Pittman in round 8. Blake Corum, I had to grab him in a handcuff. It was there, or he probably wasn't going to be available. It was coming back. There was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There was like 16. There's 16 picks in between Corum and my next pick. So most likely he wasn't going to be there. So I took him. Comes back around to me around 10. I finally decided to take a quarterback. Quarterbacks I was targeting at this point all went ahead of me. I wanted Justin Herbert. Then it was Jackson Dart. Then it was Dak. And then, of course, my big fallback was Jared Goff. I have St. Brown in round 1. We get the projection that Detroit's got the easiest schedule in the NFL this year based on common opponents. So, they have those indoor games. We know Jared Goff is a beast indoor at home, pretty much a low-end QB1 at home. Things can vary as far as on the road, but it's somebody that you can plug in and you're going to get a steady floor most of the time attached to a good offense that doesn't like to settle for field goals. We do know that. So, Goff as a QB1 round 10, I think it's tremendous value. Allowed me to round out the rest of my build. I did want to get Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck's going in round 11 here. I thought he would last a little bit longer here, but he didn't. He goes off in round 11. Bo Nix also in 11. Baker Mayfield. Seems like there's a lot of good QB value this year by waiting. Matthew Stafford round 11. There's not much difference between QB 13 and QB 7 per se. But just something to note. Jared Goff, I end up, what the hell did I take as a second quarterback? And it was late, right? Oh, Brissett. Round 19, Jacoby Brissett. I know a lot of people aren't expecting him to start 17 games. However, Arizona seems to think they might be playing for something because they went ahead and they took Jeremiah Love right there at pick 3, which is not something you usually do when you're in a rebuild. with a lot of needs. Running backs usually is the last thing you address, but they go ahead and they take him. They were on pace. We know they're averaging like 40 to 43 passing attempts per game under Brissett. If he played a whole season, he probably would have led the league in pass attempts. We know Bo Nix was the leader in that category, but Arizona could be, they're going to be playing from behind most of the time, in my opinion. So I think people are kind of sleeping on Jacoby Brissett. I think that a lot of teams thinking that they're in full tank mode, but I actually think that their offense is good enough that they will compete in some of these games and they will win enough games throughout the early part of the year to not fall into full tank mode. So I do think that if full tank mode, bring in Carson Beck, who they drafted in the third round, and sit down Brissett happens, it's going to be later in the season. And, we can go from there, play it from there. Quarterback is something that I pay attention to early on. There's always sometimes teams will draft 3 quarterbacks and end up dropping one. And, that's when you got to pay attention on the waivers, when you're grinding waivers, scooping up a quarterback before they kind of become a thing. Is how you do it. Last year, I did scoop up Brissett in a couple spots. Jackson Dart was another one for me last year. I grabbed him off the free agent list. So there is times throughout the first few weeks where quarterbacks will present themselves. So I don't mind taking a high, a high risk, high upside pick in Jacoby Brissett there, especially where I went Jared Goff. For those road games, bad matchups where Brissett might have a great matchup where he might be in a shootout, or they might be definitely, they're definitely going to be playing from behind. Brissett's the play there. So I kind of like the combo. That's why I went Brissett there. Next thing I want to point out is round 12, I go Tyrone Tracy. Now, call me nuts, but I think round 12, Tyrone Tracy is an absolute gift. He was going in 7th, 8th, 9th round last year. And he, let's see, I was just paying attention to the chat, so I lost my train of thought. I haven't even been paying attention to the chat. We got Jamie in there, Albert, appreciate you guys. Football Guys Fantasy. Yeah, no, appreciate you guys, man. I've been playing in the NSFC online championship for quite a few years now. Good to see you guys sponsoring it again. See the prize pool was jumped up. Saw Dave Kluge out there live streaming drafts too. That's always a good thing, man. Dave is one of the sharpest guys I know when it comes to fantasy football. Don't let his Twitter presence of being a quote unquote online moron throw you off. He is one shop fantasy football dude. So yeah, good to see you guys getting involved with the high stakes community and putting everything together. That's kind of my thing here. I'm with the sports affiliation, and I kind of bringing together 2 different parts of the community, the high stakes and casuals, trying to, do the best they can to be the best fantasy players that they can, as well as be a critical, positive part of the community. So it's all a beautiful thing, man. Appreciate you guys tuning in. But back to the draft board. Where was I going? Jared Goff. Oh, Tyrone Tracy. So we got Cam Scatterbo. He's going off in round 4. And let's see. Scatterbo. Where does Scatterbo go in this one? Yeah, round 4. We do know that he plays reckless. He's got concussion problems. He's absolute menace when he's on the field, but nobody's really paying attention to the fact that they didn't really add anybody in the draft. And Tyrone Tracy is already a great third down running back as is. He's wide receiver coming out through college, high school and college, converted to running back. So we know he can catch passes. He makes plays. I think he's great after contact. His durability was always a main concern for me. I don't think he can be a workhorse back by any means or an RB1 of the team, but I think he complements Scatterbull really well. And I think a Scatterbull with a missed time, he does present somewhat of a pretty good RB2 ceiling. So Tyrone Tracy, round 12, I think he's one of the better handcuffs to target. We know Devin Singletary's still rostered as of now, but Singletary kind of brings that veteran presence, the pass protection. We do know the Giants, they looking to improve the offensive line. I think that their offense is going to take a step forward this year. We got potentially a healthy Malik Neighbors. They brought in Isaiah Likely at tight end. So, they're making strides for the offense to take a step forward. So I think Tyrone Tracy, round 12 as a handcuff is kind of a no-brainer. Another one that I feel like people are forgetting about, Rashid Shaheed. Get him in round 13. After JSN, it's him, Torrey Horton. You got AJ Bana. Kenneth Walker is removed from the mix. Zach Charbonnet is injured. Jadarian Price comes in. Emmanuel Wilson comes in. I think people are sleeping on Rashid Shaheed a little bit. They did, they paid him. They did. I think he got extended in the offseason, or just before the season was over, I should say. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, he's definitely under contract, and they're defending Super Bowl champs, and we know Shaheed can. He has a high ceiling. He's got that boomer bust factor, and I got him as a wide receiver 6 here in round 13. So if he can provide enough consistency, he could potentially fill my flex role. I mean, my flex role is up in the air currently with this roster. I have Bashal Tootin. I will include Kyron Williams and Corum there, and Tootin, as well as Michael Pittman and Tyrone Tracy and Rashid Shaheed. Those are really my flex candidates, and it'd be nice to see Shaheed take a step forward, put it all together this year, and maybe push for 7 to 10 touchdowns with a little bit more involvement in the offense, because it is the Seattle Seahawks, and Sam Darnold can sling it. Again, Super Bowl champions. Yeah, they don't have Kenneth Walker, they don't have Charbonnet. They're not going to have their run game. They could be leaning on their passing game more this year. It's kind of what the evidence is suggesting to me currently. Again, we have to see training camp, coaching notes, all that stuff. But I think Shaheed is a pretty good pick in these mid rounds. Again, I mentioned Njoku around 17. I decided to take a flyer on him the next morning, signed a contract with the LA Chargers. So that turned out to be a pretty decent pick. I don't think you're going to see him in round 17 anymore. I think you'll see him jump right up into the round 12, 13, 14 range, although that's still a pretty good cost. I'm happy to have him at a free square in round 17. Mason Taylor, round 18. Again, we know they took Kenyon Sadiq. They drafted Omar Cooper. I took 2 pieces of this Jets offense. I grabbed Omar Cooper in round 16 and Mason Taylor in round 18. And the reason for that being is I think this is ambiguous as a situation as there is in the NFL. We know you got Garrett Wilson as your clear-cut wide receiver 1. Breece Hall is your running back, but he really wasn't part of the passing game as much as we thought he would be. They went out and they added pass catches, Sadiq. Omar Cooper. They still have Adonai Mitchell. So, it's an ambiguous situation, and it's just and on an offense that's probably going to be playing from behind most games with Geno Smith at quarterback. Could have a lot of pass attempts, a lot of garbage time points. Omar Cooper's in the slot. Mason Taylor led the team in targets last year. Obviously Garrett Wilson was injured, but still nonetheless led the New York Jets with targets last year. So that was despite missing some games. So yeah, still taking a late round flyer on Mason Taylor. And that's pretty much it. The other rookie wide receiver I took was Antonio Williams. Is basically same thing situation. I think he has a chance to produce from day one. He's got Terry McLaurin on one side of the ball. They lost. They no longer have Zach Ertz. They no longer have Deebo Samuel. There's a lot of vacated targets there. And, again, a slot wide receiver, competing with reps against Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey, I believe. So, we don't know if they're going to add Ayuk or at some point or another free agent wide receiver or whatnot. But as of right now, I think Antonio Williams is a pretty good flyer to take a shot on as a rookie. For that reason, he got a good landing spot with potential to get targets right away. And that's pretty much my draft. What else did I want to? Let me check my notes real quick. Oh, Jaden Reed in round 10. I think this is a nice value. I wanted to point that out. Round 10, Jaden Reed goes to team 1. We know Dobbs isn't there. Is no longer there. Tucker Kraft coming off of a season-ending injury. How many weeks is it going to take to him to get to full speed? Jaden, and he's entering year 3. One of the things I always like to state and like to bring up is the year 3 wide receiver with good draft capital. Jaden Reed fits that profile. We know that he was limited to slot reps. He wasn't out wide on 2 wide receiver sets for the most part. Dobbs is out of the picture now. Dontavian Wicks is out of the picture. The offense has been condensed down to Christian Watson, Matthew Golden, him, Jaden Reed. We got Josh Jacobs. So I think the offense has been condensed. I think you might be able to see a little bit of a more consistent uptick in consistent volume from Jaden Reed, making him possibly flex worthy. And you're talking about round 10, that's value. So that's another key takeaway I wanted to point out here. Let me see if there's anything else I see on the fly before I get out of here. I do have to pick the children's up from school at 2:30. It is currently 1:30, so I'm going to wrap this up soon. Let's take a look. Let me see anything that really sticking out here. I think I covered pretty much all the little tidbits that I wanted to. So appreciate everybody tuning in live. Jeff Bell, appreciate you, man. All the guys at Football Guys Fantasy. It's great that you're sponsoring this tournament. Like I said, making high stakes, join another part of the computer. I like to see it all come together because I have a bunch of friends that are casuals. I have a bunch of friends that are just fantasy analysts, and they're just all about having a good time in the fantasy community, but don't necessarily play high stakes. And then I have my high stakes group where, a lot of the people are unknown, and we have conversations about fantasy football, and we teach each other a lot of stuff. We learn a lot of stuff from each other just by being opponents that respect each other. So it's good to see the entire community come together, and I'm glad that I did this today to cover this draft. They decided to do one early one. Might be a few weeks before I jump in another one. We'll see. I'm not really high volume. I'm not nuts with it. I don't do 30, 40 entries like some of these guys, but, you know, good for those, you know, great for the guys that can do that. I tried to increase a little bit. I decided that if it can't be increased a lot, it really doesn't have an effect. So I'm not going to try to distract myself by getting caught in the middle. So I'm gonna go quantity over quality. So anytime I enter these drafts, you better believe I'm in there to win it. I'm not trying to diversify. I'm going after my guys. That's my message to all you NFFC regulars. I know you're listening out there. That's how I'm approaching it this year. It's no secret, and I want you guys to know that. And it's a pleasure drafting with everybody. And I'm going to get out of here. Hope you guys enjoyed the analyzation of this draft. Next week on Aces Up, Tuesday night, I believe we're going to have Michael Reedy joining the professor and Dennis. We're going to go over best ball ADP once again. Now that we have rookie landing spots, and of course that's where Michael Reedy, once he gets the landing spots, he does his thing and he figures out, he generates his player takes and analyzes some situations. So we're going to pick his brain on that. Looking forward to that next week. If you guys enjoyed this, hit the like, hit the subscribe. The sports affiliation. We're still trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I think we're approaching 900. My daughter's still, holding her end of the bargain. If we hit that 1,000 subscribers, she's going to do a video cartwheeling down the hallway in my house here. So she's still looking forward to that. She made that promise like a year ago. So that's it. Got to bring it up again. It's been a while since I brought that up. So subscribe to the Sports Affiliation. Great content every day. Can't thank Iggy and JC enough for giving me this platform to get on here and have some fun and talk football. So that's it, guys. Everybody else, have a good afternoon.